One top feature. In the Quran is the language that is supposed to be a top feature. When they listen to it, they feel enveloped in the divine dimension of sound. There was one time when one of them was so mad with Muhammad that he wanted to kill him. He took his sword and walked down the street looking for Muhammad, and he said, "He's a heretic, I'm going to kill him today." Somebody directed him back home. When he went home, he saw that the Quran of all things was being read in his own house. He was so angry with those who were reading that he physically abused them and punched them and chased them out. But when they ran, they left the Quran on the floor. It was turned to the 20th chapter. He picked it up and he read, and this is what he said. "How fine and noble is this speech," he said wonderingly. And this Muslim was felled, brought to his knees by the beauty of the Quran, which reached through his passionate hatred and prejudice to an inner receptivity that he had not been aware of. He put the sword back in its sheath, walked down the streets to look for Muhammad, and when he found Muhammad, he knelt before him and said, "From now I am a Muslim." 1 hour changed his whole lifestyle and life thinking because of the beauty of the Quran. Wow? No? Yes, it is wow. Of course it is wow. And yet in the Quran, the Muhammad is called the Ummi prophet or the unlettered prophet. Muhammad could neither read nor write. He was illiterate. And that is why it is called the Quran. The word Quran means recitation or recitation. What he heard from the angel Gabriel, he would come and recite. And there were people who would quickly try to memorize what he's saying or write it down somewhere, and then they gathered it up into a Quran. And that is why the Quran is called Quran, which means a recitation or a recitation, because he was unlettered. The language of the Quran then is amazing, exquisitely beautiful, and possibly supernatural. Hinduism, its deep philosophy, is definitely one of the top features. Hindu sages have given to mankind one of the most sophisticated systems of philosophy ever devised. That's from the National Geographic. It contains a blend of religion, ethics, civil codes, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, and other natural sciences. When you go into them, it's really impressive, the way they write up their things. Of course, there are discrepancies and contradictions like any other writing, but basically a very deep philosophy. So, Hindu philosophy is amazing, deep, and brilliant. Buddhism, 3 features. It's vast, detailed, mysterious. The Pali, which is the language, the original language, the first language in which it was written, contains 45 volumes. The Chinese, 100 volumes of 1,000 printed pages. The Tibetan, 325 volumes. The Pali, which is Indian, Chinese, Tibetan, put them together, it comes to 470,000 pages. Less than half of it has been translated today from the original Pali and Sanskrit. So it's huge. It's also very, very detailed. For instance, if you want to identify a Buddha, here's how you do it. The Lord's body had 32 marks of a Superman and was adorned with the 80 subsidiary characteristics. He was endowed with the 18 special dharmas of a Buddha, mighty with the 10 powers of a Tathagata, and in possession of the 4 grounds of self-confidence. Extremely precise, despite its vastness. And the way they lived, the monks were subject to 250 rules in the monasteries. They are known as Pratimoksha rules. They were supposed to say a prayer, and this is a common prayer, and say all of it. And here's how it goes. May I be freed at all times from the 4 states of woe, the 3 scourges, the 8 wrong circumstances, the 5 enemies, the 4 deficiencies, the 5 misfortunes, and quickly attain the path. Now you can see immediately how detailed they want to be. And you just can't say 4 states of woe. You have to state the states of woe and the rest. Further, the bulk of this literature is couched in a deliberately mysterious language which would convey nothing to the average reader. In other words, you must get into the thinking and thought of Buddha himself and some of the others who are bodhisattvas before you can understand what is written there. For instance, the realization that undifferentiated emptiness is the sole absolute truth. How many of you understood that? See, it's difficult to understand. Nirvana is therefore that mental state in which one realizes that all things are really non-existent. It is not easy. It is couched in language that the ordinary reader will have a difficult time. So it is vast, it is detailed, precise, and very mysterious. Buddhism then is amazing, awesome, and mysterious, possibly supernatural. Judeo-Christian, again I put these two together for the way in which this feature comes out. It's a complex book, 66 individual books, written over 1400 years. The spectrum is really vast. Kings, military generals, peasants, philosophers, fishermen, tax collectors, and the rest. Now what I'm going to show is a feature, and it is called cross-referencing or attesting. This is not found in any other ancient writing. For instance, there is attestation between authors of the Old Testament. For example, I, Daniel, understood by the books the number of the years specified by the word of the Lord through Jeremiah. Daniel is saying this: I got my information from a certain source, and that same source had spoken to Jeremiah earlier. That's his attestation. You get it between authors of New Testament too. Peter is attesting Paul. And he says, according to the wisdom that was given Paul. In other words, wherever I got my wisdom from, Paul also got his wisdom from. And between the authors of the New and the Old Testament, for instance, this one down here, all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the Lord through the prophet Isaiah. This is Matthew. Matthew is saying, I've got my information that I'm writing down from a certain source, and that source had spoken to Isaiah 600 years earlier. This cross-attestation is absolutely unique. There is no other literature on earth that has this kind of cross-attestation. So, attesting. And so, we are just accepting what the writings are telling us. We are not saying it's true or false. Just put it out there. If that's the case, and we've accepted the other features as really valid, then let's accept this also and say that the Lord was a source throughout the writing of the Bible. Therefore, this source lived for at least 1400 to 1500 years. And that is humanly impossible. Because the Guinness Book of World Records says the most that a man can live is 120 years today. So if there is a source that lived all that while and supervised the writing, then the feature becomes humanly impossible. Now, all of the features are very impressive. We must never think that one supersedes the other. And in this one, I think all of them come out so high that I stand in awe of them. Let's close for this evening and come back at 7 o'clock or before 7 o'clock tomorrow. We will go through what I said. Now the founders, the flesh and blood founders, do they lead? They go back? We will look at them tomorrow. Please come back.